The Cyanex in Warframe, I believe, is a very underrated secondary. There's definitely better, first and slot weapons to use. Things like your Epitaph and even the Tysus, the Coda Tysus, with secondary Innovate really does provide some outstanding damage numbers. But I wanted to just talk about this funny little homing secondary because I like it. And I want to share with other people why I like it and why I think it's good. I'm going to be using a completely unmodded Cyanex for a demonstration of what the Cyanex does. But its primary fire sends off homing projectiles that on hit explode and into like a gas cloud. Unmodded, it is complete shit. Like the damage output's very poor, but with the gas clouds and with the homing, you can already see the potential. Now the builds I want to go through today are two just general uses for the gun. There's a damage build mainly, and then there's a stat build. Again, there's definitely better secondary weapons out there for damage and for spreading stats, but this is just what I've sort of come up with. My builds, I'm definitely not a pro modder at all, and if anyone does have any tips to improve this stuff, leave it in the comments below. The first one we'll look at is just a stat spreader. This is what I've come up with. Lethal momentum just for a bit more projectile speed so it gets onto the enemies quicker. Running secondary encumber for it. Our status chance is 137.2%, so we're always going to be applying a status effect. The ribbon that I've got on both the damage and the stat is essentially just replacing frostbite, 60% cold, 60% status chance. I was lucky enough to roll one with status chance and cold on there, so I can just bin it. And then I've got 88% status chance and 86.8% cold. And 1.45 damage to Grenier, which is also good. The fact that it's got negative 69.4% critical damage doesn't bother me because the crit chance on this gun sucks. And I've got Pistol Elementalist. It's mainly for reload speed as well, which I've put on the damage build as well. The reload speed on the regular Cyanex really hinders its performance. And I've also got stunning speed on here just for more stats chance, more reload speed. Fulmination for the gas clouds to be bigger. A sure shot for status chance. Again, we're not going to be running any galvanized mods on the stat build because I'm not really looking to kill with this thing. And same with the diffusion. Again, it's great to put on things that you're going to be doing a lot of damage with, but this is more just spreading status. And then Jolt as well, purely because of preference. I like electricity and I like viral. I've always found that they paired well for my personal playstyle and what I use the weapons for. And testing out the status build, again, I'm not running anything apart from Nova, Cyanex, and Shade. This is the status that it can do. And as you can see on the heavy gunners, it does pretty well. That's where I started. The stat will fall off relatively fast, but it does do pretty well, especially if you're just mag dumping. Send it around, it really does sort of spread that status out nicely. Again, if you're using something like an Epitaph, it will do this so much more than what a Cyanex will do. It can be a really good status spreader, but it's probably not a weapon that I'd take in as a primer. But again, it can do a pretty good job at priming. Especially as I do a lot of Elite Sanctuary Onslaught. I'll take this weapon in with me, mainly because it does a good job of dealing with the Eximus units that my Vault doesn't seem to really deal with. The primary fire on the Cyanex just does the little homing bits and pieces that go everywhere. The secondary fire is a mag dump, so it's no homing, but it just dumps the entire lot out. And it's a pretty accurate line, honestly. Like you can pretty consistently get the damage in. The recoil is a bit shit. You've got to hone it in. But it's if you're up against a really strong unit and you're relatively close to the unit and you just want to stat spread everything all at once, you can do that. For the stat, if you want to swap out different mods, you could go, obviously, for the Cyanex, just change that out for Frostbite, and you've still got Viral on there. You've still got a really good status chance, 128%. if you're not using a Riven or anything like that, if you are going for a Riven, it's really dealer's choice, however you want to use it. I've re-rolled this a lot of times. I originally had damage and heat on it, but I started making the 2 builds for damage and stat, and I wanted one with frost on there and a bit more status chance, so I can get rid of frostbite and prioritize some other things to put on there. And fulmination, if you don't like fulmination, you can get rid of that and put on perpetual agony. Again, I brought up earlier that the status doesn't really stay on what you apply it to for super long. It suits my playstyle, fulmination, just having that gas cloud a little bit bigger. But if you want perpetual agony on the build, that works just as well. Moving on to the damage build, very similar to the stat. We've got viral on there. The only thing we've swapped it out for is heat instead of electricity, and that's because we're going to be running Cascadia Flare on this weapon. I used to run Merciless, which is on kill, 30% damage for 4 seconds. Stacks up to 12, but Cascadia Flare I found actually helps with that damage ramp up way more than what Merciless was. With Galvanized Shot, that's really where it comes to life. Same with Cascadia Flare. That damage ramp up and Galvanized Diffusion. And without Cascadia Flare and Primary Merciless on, it actually really struggled to sort of get those first couple of kills without just going through magazines and magazines and magazines and magazines. So Cascadia Flare really helps that damage ramp up immediately, so you can actually see the Cyanex doing something. Pistol Elementalist, again, status damage. We want to do damage out of this, and making all this stuff do more damage helps us out. Prime T to charge for Cascadia Flare. Galvanized Shot and Galvanized Diffusion. When we're killing things, they are stacking up. They're very good. Hornet Strike just for damage to get it up from where it was. And my Riven, again, lethal momentum just to make them go down a bit faster, and lethal torrent for that fire rate. Pistol Elementalist really, I think, is sort of a must-have. Before they had this mod out, I had primed. Oh, where am I? Sorry, I had primed quick draw on this, plus 88% reload speed. And when this bought out, that there's a godsend. You still get 60% reload speed, but the stat damage on there as well is really good. Like if you want to run quickening, not quickening, whatever it's called, stunning speed on this as well, you can. Both of these builds I know are very, very costly. I have put 9 former into this thing, mainly just because I've reworked it once and I had to redo one of these formers, but it is what it is. And then these Cascadia Flare and Secondary Encumber are not really easy arcanes to fall over, but hey, we live. It's all good. I like the Cyanex. This is definitely not geared towards beginners. I apologise. Got a fresh bunch of people. This is the Cyanex. Again, I'm not priming. I haven't got any other weapons or anything. This is just showing off the damage, which is as so. As we can see, Cascadia Flare really does ramp up quickly, which obviously after the 0 seconds it just defeats off. Diffusion. And then Galvanized Shot as well. They all really creep up very fast. If we just keep going, it really does. It ramps the Cascadia Flare up to max with a couple, and really does a lot of damage afterwards. And the status effects do pretty well for themselves. And then as for the secondary fire, we're just going to try it on the heavy gunner. Mag dump. And as you can see, that Cascadia Flare really does ramp up quickly. And then a second mag dump makes... Okay, thanks, Kaya. It makes light work. It really does. Which again, if you're doing a couple of headshots like that, it's pretty spot on. It really does do some heavy damage. It's all well and good me saying how well this does in the simulacrum as opposed to a mission, because they're all stood still waiting for bullets to hit them. So let's take it into a mission and see how it fares. I'm going to take this Cyanex damage build into just a Steel Path Exterminate. It's mainly just to show how the weapon performs, how the damage is. I'm still going to bring in Shade, and I'm still going to bring in Nova just for so I can survive, obviously, and bring a frame in. So again, once we mag dump, we get a couple of those stacks going. Steel path, but it's still doing quite decent damage. And the good thing is, all the homing projectiles, you can really just sort of jump in the air, aim glide, and say, oh, there's an enemy, I'll just shoot sort of in this area. I've played Warframe for far too many hours that I do tend to just sort of watch videos these days now and not really focus on the game. So having a weapon like this that you don't really have to super duper focus on is helpful. I haven't got raw active or anything, even though I've got raw on this build, and it's really doing capable damage. It really is. Now, as a standalone weapon, I don't really recommend obviously bringing it as just the only weapon in your arsenal into a mission. There's always going to be situations where this weapon isn't what you should be using as the main damage dealer. Xmas units it will struggle on, like you do sort of have to be quite up close and then just mag dump to get them out the way. I like using it. Again, I more made this video just to sort of spread that, hey, I like the Cyanex and I think more people should be using this thing because built right, it works really well. And then I can yap while recording this about how much I like the gun and not super duper focus on crouching, zooming in, hitting shots. I can just I can shoot in the area where I see the enemies. All in all, to wrap up though, I really like the Cyanex. I think more people should be using it. I'd love to see Warframe come up with like an augment mod for it, possibly like sort of like what the Ocusaur has, because that's a fantastic secondary. Yeah, that's about it from me. If you liked this video, consider leaving a like and subscribing. It'd help me out. And if you've got any ideas on how to change the build up at all, please let me know in the comments section. Again, if my Cyanex can be stronger potentially, I'll gladly take that because I like this weapon. And hey, if you've got a favorite secondary, why don't you drop it down below, because I like secondary weapons. They're my favorites to build. They're fun and funny. Thank you all for watching.